Hi, I'm Ted Wolf, presented by Guidewise. Welcome to the Implementors podcast, where we connect you to the stories and insights of people who have mastered implementation. Why? Because ideas are easy, but implementation is hard. Join us as we uncover the secrets of successful implementation so you can conquer your implementation struggles. Today on the Implementors podcast, we're joined by Jeff Burningham, tech entrepreneur, investor, and the author of the newly released book, The Last Book Written by a Human. In it, Jeff delivers a powerful, heart-led exploration of what it means to be deeply human in the AI era. From leading a NASDAQ-listed startup and building real estate VC platforms managing billions, to serving as a gubernatorial candidate, Jeff has lived a life at the intersection of technology, leadership, and purpose. His latest work challenges us to evolve beyond unconscious routines and systems, to grow wiser, even as machines grow smarter. In this conversation, we're going to dig into why AI is forcing us to reassess what it means to be human, how wisdom, love, and connection actually become our guiding principles, Jeff's personal journey from high-tech entrepreneur to author and thought leader, and what it takes to lead with both head and heart in the age of intelligent machines. If you want to explore how we can stay deeply human while navigating radical disruption, this episode is a must-watch. So, Jeff, welcome to the Implementors podcast.
And it's so good to be with you today.
Thank you. I'm fascinated by your title, The Last Book Written by a Human. How did you come about finding that title?
Great question. It's one that's deeply personal to me. Actually, the cover art is even personal to me. I was able to work with, I love modern art. One of my favorite artists is Mr. Brainwash. He's a modern artist in California, Beverly Hills. We were able to work on the cover together. He just believed in the message and helped out. It was really fun. But the way that I came to the last book written by a human, obviously, I hope it's not the last book. Could it be the last book? It wasn't about that. It was more, if I was plopped on the earth as a 48-year-old, I am now, and was wondering what in the world is going on here and what is AI, this is the book that I would want to read. And it was a title that I felt like could and would catch my attention so that I would pick it up and read it so that I had a feel and an understanding of where we are in history and who I really was and what the reality is that we are living here together. That's where the book title came from.
Okay, so that's a pretty philosophical way of looking at things. I compliment it. I love it. I love what you have to say in the book, the message and everything, the story. You mentioned in there, in effect, that we face a choice. Either we let technology shape who we are, or we consciously shape our own future. What was the catalyst to that particular insight and choice that you think we all have to make?
Yeah, the difference about AI versus anything else we've created, and obviously humans have created extensions of themselves, tools for as long as we know.
Mhm.
But the difference about AI is its agentic nature, or in other words, its ability to act as an agent unto itself. We've already seen little inklings of this, little experiments and tests that have come out where AI acts with agency. It's given a task, but then it uses its own agency and at times even deception to do that. So, the reason that I think this is absolutely crucial with this technology of AI and why it's different than any other is that it will have agency. It will make choices. So we need to feed it with all the data that we can around the human condition, around what it means to be human, around how we view human flourishing, so that it can take into account that background, that understanding, you could say, as it becomes more and more agentic, as it becomes more and more powerful. And so I think it's absolutely crucial that we infuse AI with as much awareness, as much consciousness about our human condition and as we possibly can. I don't think it should just be raw data. I think it needs to be an understanding, again, of human flourishing, or else I fear that it could lead to more human destruction.
And how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that we're figuring out together. I don't have all the answers. This is the first time that, at least that we recall, that AI is springing up. You have to ask yourself, why is this happening now? And what is maybe a grander or bigger purpose? These are the questions that I asked myself. And I talk about in the book about AI being a mirror, a cosmic mirror to humanity, which it is. AI has ingested all the data that we could possibly give it, all the human background history data, writing, etc. And then it reflects back to us what it's read, the data that we fed it. So I think it has to do with, Ted, feeding it with a full understanding, as much as possible, of the human condition. Machines can't feel love. They don't feel empathy. I'm confident, Ted, I don't know you personally, but I'm sure there's some pain in your background. There is in mine. There is in every human story. Can machines feel that? No. Could they read it and understand it? Yes. So I think it's infusing it with this, again, the best understanding it can possibly have of the human condition based on data, and also based on past human failures and past human successes. And if
Hmm.
we outline a beautiful future that we could create together, I think that the potential for AI is unbelievably powerful.
Well, it sounds like to me you're talking about it's the arc of the story, and that's what
Yeah.
makes it interesting. So you seem to me, Jeff, to be an individual that is probably introspective and observing of the human condition.
Yeah.
And let's unpack that a little bit if we can. Let's talk a little bit about the story of Jeff. Take us back to the beginning. How'd you get involved in business? What were your motivations and beliefs at that point in time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've always been a self-starting entrepreneur. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, Spokane, Washington. I'm the oldest of six kids. I grew up in a very conservative religion, high demand Christian religion. And so I was instilled with these solid Christian values growing up, which I'm very grateful for.
Hmm.
Very hard work ethic. I was an athlete growing up. Again, being the oldest of six, I was a pretty good basketball player. So I was asked when I turned 12, 13, 14 to start traveling to these different travel tournaments. And we didn't have the money to do that. So I somehow convinced my parents, I'm grateful they did it, to buy a carpet cleaner for me. And I started cleaning carpets at the local elementary school, at the doctor's offices, dentist's offices, etc., so that I could go to these travel basketball tournaments and buy basketball shoes, etc. So I've always been that way. My first tech startup was an undergrad at BYU. It was a high tech company that we built and grew through the dot-com bubble, which is interesting. I then sold that company to a NASDAQ listed firm when I was 26 or 7, so mid 20s. I spun the proceeds of that exit into real estate. This is in 2005, 6, so right before the Great
Yeah,
Recession.
yeah, yeah,
It was an exciting time, a fun
yeah,
time. I
yeah.
learned a lot, and we ended up growing real estate private equity firm. We almost didn't make it because we'd come into the office and AIG is failing, Lehman Brothers is going under, but when we turned it around quite significantly, and we've owned, you know, over $5 billion of real estate assets in our career. So yeah, my background is entrepreneurship. And when
Hmm.
Peak Capital, which is the name of our real estate firm, really got on solid footing, I opened a venture fund here along the Silicon Slopes. It was the first institutional venture fund in Utah County, here in Utah, and have been the first investor in most of the up and coming tech startups here in the state. Then I lost my mind, ran for governor. We could talk more about that, but yeah, so that's kind of my background. That's my very conservative background, Christian values, hardworking, good family, but every family wounds us in unique ways. And then entrepreneurship and athletics. Yeah.
Hmm. So tell me a little bit about the journey going from an entrepreneur. Uh, you've been very successful, obviously. So you had a lot of good things and good work ethic and things like that going for you. Tell me a little bit about the journey going from that to running for governor.
Yeah, that was a really interesting process. About in 2017, if you remember, Ted, I opened the book on the River Ganges in Varanasi, India.
Hmm.
2017, I took a trip to India and actually to Tibet, China, that was very impactful to me. I felt myself being lured into deeper waters, if that makes sense. I felt my
Hmm.
soul being called into something deeper. And so coming home off that trip, I started looking into things that I might do that were different than starting more businesses. One of which was running for political office.
Hmm.
And as the 2020 gubernatorial campaign or race started coming up, this is in 2018 or so, I had friends, well-known political people in the state, encourage me to consider running,
Hmm.
and I decided to do that. And it was a very good learning experience for me. I learned a lot about the difference between entrepreneurship and politics. I met a lot of interesting people in the political world here in Utah. And I lost the most critical months of the campaign, this is very interesting. Obviously, when I was deciding whether to run or not, I had kind of a pro and con list or potential challenges to running. Global pandemic was not on that potential challenges. That was
Hmm.
not in my purview.
Hmm.
But the
Hmm.
most critical months of the campaign were March, April, May, and June of 2020.
Hmm.
And so I was running against two very well-known political candidates, a former governor of our state and a presidential candidate, and then the current lieutenant governor. And so during the global pandemic, and there was no way that a political outsider like myself was going to have a chance. So I lost the race. And looking back, I can see that my subconscious was taking me off the stage. It was creating time and space so that I could write this book and do other things that I
Hmm.
feel really passionate about.
Hmm. So let's go back, if we can, to the Ganges and Tibet.
Yeah.
Not necessarily havens for Christian thinking.
No.
You said you felt yourself pulled. You started looking at deeper waters, we'll say unconscious driven. Tell us a little bit about what were the thoughts and what were the things that you found attractive or challenging to your current state at that point that maybe helped you expand.
Yeah. Such a good question, and something we could talk about for hours. The opening scene is me and my wife Sally sitting in Varanasi in front of the river Ganges, and there's a scene there that I will never forget, Ted. Growing up deeply Christian and with that kind of faith tradition and background, I sat and was mesmerized. The golden hour was coming, the sun was setting. To my left was one of the most famous crematoriums in the world. So there were bodies literally just on wooden shelves with a sheet, one white sheet over them, that were being brought to the edge of the river and lit on fire. As a Westerner and Christian, that is something I had never
Yeah,
witnessed before.
yeah, yeah.
Only a couple hours later, and I sat there for a couple of hours, that same body was reduced to a mere pile of ashes that was swept into the river. This is to my left. Right in front of me, there were pilgrims, locals, I'm sure, and people that traveled from far away, baptizing themselves literally through the ashes of death that were flowing through them,
Mm,
baptizing them, being reborn, so to speak. Then to my right, probably 50 yards further down the river, one of the most mundane tasks of the day was happening, the laundry.
mm,
So this scene somehow sparked a remembrance of me, or a felt sense of something that I knew but had forgotten, which is so true for all of us in many ways. But life, existence, is a never ending cycle of death, rebirth, and life. We are all in one of these three stages all the time. And so it opened my mind wide open, Ted, because of a felt sense or recognition that I had inside of me. By the way, AI is forcing us here, in my humble opinion, to be reborn as humanity, to grapple with questions, critical questions about who we really are and what reality really is. That's its quote unquote divine or spiritual deeper purpose, in my opinion.
mm.
So.
Let's dive deeper into that. How do you think, in your mind, how does this work where AI is challenging us to become more human?
Yeah, it's kind of bringing the economics or the economy or ethics of heaven down to earth.
Okay.
Here's what I mean by that. I'll try to be
Mm,
succinct, but these
mm,
are deep, like robust questions. I talk about in the book, you might remember the chapter about the all-seeing eye in the
mhm,
sky.
mhm,
And I think we're mirroring that. I tell a bedtime story about the all-seeing eye in the sky that scanned the cosmos and couldn't find anything else in all of existence. It knew that it existed, it thought that it was good, but without any reflection, this eye had a problem, like all of our eyes do, Ted. We can only see our
right,
eyes with the
right,
reflection,
right.
and it didn't have one. So after some time, it broke itself into a lot of little pieces and caused itself to forget so that it could have a reflection. It was one, and now it was many. And through the many, it was able to see itself more clearly. It was able to love and be loved. It was able to feel joy and pain. And this gave it a reflection and an understanding of itself. So that's kind of a spiritual metaphor of where I think we're at in existence. Now I just want to I think that's what humans are doing with AI. That's the compulsion that we feel to build in AI. We're creating a reflection of ourselves.
Okay.
We want to see ourselves. We want to understand ourselves better. So we're using the best technology that we have to create, again, what I call this cosmic mirror to who we are and to who we've become, so that I believe we can transform and evolve. As you know, there are 4 sections in the book. I won't go into those now, but the second 2 sections are transformation and
Mhm,
evolution. And
mhm.
that's where I believe AI is wanting to take us, or can take us if we choose to let it.
Okay, you mentioned in the book, AI won't replace great leaders, but burnout might. What you just talked about, how does that tie together?
Yeah, we've become human doings, Ted. We're not human doings, we're human beings.
Mhm,
Look, you and I are breathing right now, we're talking. We're always going to be doing. As long as we exist in this embodied form, as long as we're embodied, there is plenty of doing to be done, and it's going to happen. But what kind of being are we bringing to that doing? I told the story in the book about running a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm, starting this venture fund, investing $100 million or so. I was the father of 4 young children. I was a spiritual leader, a bishop in my local faith
mhm.
tradition and congregation. I was so busy. And somehow, on top of this, I decided to get an MBA. This is so stupid, on nights and weekends. What was I thinking? Why did I do that? Well, you and your listeners might have a little sense. It's because I always thought that if I did more, I could be more, but that's not true. Really, we need to go inside of our own being and bring our being to everything that we do. As machines replace much of what humans have done and can do it better than humans have, what are we left with? We are left with our being. And we are left to look inside of ourselves and to do the work inside of ourselves and to bring that being forward. So that is the call of AI. That is the cosmic dance that we're doing with it. And again, I think there's a divine purpose in it and something that can bring us back to our being, which is critical in the modern age.
Okay. And you're saying, in effect, if we don't do that, we will burn out. How are you
Yeah, we
defining
will.
burnout?
Yeah, we will burn out, and we can't keep up with the machines. We shouldn't try to keep up at the game of AI. AI never sleeps. It never has to forget anything. It never takes a break. We cannot keep up with AI in doing. But what's unique
Mhm.
about the human condition is our being. It's being embodied. It's having a body. It's having wisdom. And as you said at the top, the call of this book is that as our machines grow smarter and smarter, more intelligent, we as humanity must become more wise. And we do that by looking inside ourselves, not externally, not for external validation. I talk about in the book how I climbed my little mountain of success. I don't know if you remember this part, but
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
climbed my little mountain of success. And I tell the reader at the top of the mountain, there's nothing but a cold, howling wind.
Mhm.
There's nothing that we're going to do or accomplish that will really feed our souls in the way that coming back to ourselves and our being will do.
Mhm. So I'm going to go to the end of the book if I can. The one question every CEO should be asking, and that is, are we evolving as fast as humans as our tech is? What's your evaluation on that now?
Yeah, I wish I could say yes, but I wrote the book because I think the answer is no.
Mhm.
As you know, Ted, thank you for reading the book. I'm grateful that you did. We're at a critical moment in our history, and the book is a bull case for AI,
Mhm.
meaning a positive case. I believe that AI can help us in so many ways. But it's that also because it has to be. We can't stop AI. So CEOs and people ask, is AI conscious? Will it become conscious? That's There'll be debate over that. I have my own opinions. We could talk about it, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is, are we
Mhm.
becoming more conscious?
Mhm.
If AI is a reflection of us, the question isn't, will AI wake up or become conscious? The question is, are we waking up and becoming conscious?
Mhm.
So that is the work for us to do as leaders, as business people, as politicians.
Mhm.
This book is a call to remind us who we really are, what reality is, and to wake up to that work that we have to do in front of us. So I think we can do better. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm kind of devoting, let's say, the second half of my career to becoming this weird kind of artist, author, hippie guy versus CEO, politician. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remind humanity that these are the questions we should be asking. These are the challenges that we should lean into.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper if we can in humans evolving and the work we need to do. Describe what you mean by we as humans need to evolve. What does that mean? How do you describe that to someone?
Well, I believe that we're all on a heroic journey, Ted. That goes for you. That goes for me, and that goes for humanity at large. And the hero's journey is really a call to adventure.
Mhm.
And it's through this call to adventure that we transform.
Mhm.
So in the book, I ask leaders to lean into their own heroic journeys more, to lean into the challenges that are facing them. So I think that starts with hearing the call, then not refusing the call, leaning into it, even though we don't know. I mean, change is the only constant, and AI is forcing massive change. We can either lean into that with as much ease, love, and grace as possible, which will lead to the best outcomes, I believe, or with fear. And when we lean into that, transformation can occur. And then finally, the evolution part in the book, as you know, I really talk about evolving our systems or our
Mhm.
institutions,
Mhm.
reforming religion, relooking at politics, conscious capitalism, et cetera, et cetera. But going back to transformation, one step, these are the sections of the book, by the way. Number one, disruption. Two, reflection. Three, transformation. And four, evolution. Going back to transformation, I talk about in the book this old game versus the new game. How we've been playing an old game of where cash was the only currency, where power was the main motivation, and control was the reason. I think we're
Mhm.
seeing the crescendoing of the old game here. Look around politically, economically, etc. That old game is crescendoing, and I believe that the call of the divine, the call of AI to ourselves, is to play a higher new game where karma is the currency, authenticity is the power and motivation, and love is the reason.
Mhm.
And so this is a call to leaders. I don't even know if I answered your or your question very
Mm.
well. Sorry, but hopefully I
No,
did.
that's very good. That's okay. No. How would you describe then an evolved business leader? What's an evolved business organization look like to you? How does it operate?
Yeah. Number one, it takes into account, number one, the impact on humanity. I was on another podcast earlier this week, and they said, Jeff, have you looked at AI in your business? And I said, yes. Jeff, have you cut jobs to implement AI? And I said, no. They said, what if you were able to do that and gain a competitive advantage? Well, again, we as leaders need to come back to ourselves, and we need to put these business decisions, these through the lens of human flourishing. And so if I had the ability to really upscale my business right now, but it would be at the detriment of humanity, I'm not anxious to do that.
Mhm.
I'm anxious. I think business exists to serve humanity. That's the whole purpose of capitalism. And so I think we need more business leaders that take that into account. I've always felt like management, business management, entrepreneurship is one of the highest callings in life, actually, or one of the greatest careers, because you affect people's lives so much.
Mhm.
Most of us spend more time with our maybe direct managers than we do with our spouses. So if you can be the type of direct manager that infuses love and consciousness, fun, humanity into work, you are making an extraordinary difference. Conversely, if you bring all hell to work and, like results over relationships, results always trump relationships, I think you're doing it the wrong way. So the paradigm that I lay out in the chapter about conscious capitalism in the book is the one that I would follow in terms of becoming a more evolved business leader in the age of AI.
Okay. Let me ask how you would interpret this phrase then. I'm sure you've heard it in business. I can't confuse effort with results.
Yeah, that's going to come home to roost now like it maybe never has.
Mhm.
Again, when machines are more efficient and effective at so much of the results or the doing, we're left with our being, and we're left with the messiness might I even say, Ted, that makes life beautiful. See, I think human messiness and or non optimal result is going to become more and more beautiful in the days to come, because we're going to be so used to highly efficient, effective machines. But that's not human. I mean, one of the critical things that we may or may not talk about is relationships in the age of AI.
Mhm.
Human relationship, as you know, is not efficient and effective all the time. It's not optimal. And in fact, you suck some of the lifeblood or the juice or the love out of relationship when you try to treat them that way. We're going to recognize the beauty that is being human and existing and being in human relationship in ways that we have forgotten here in the age of AI. That's my bet. My bet and goal is
Mhm.
in a renaissance of consciousness over the
Okay.
next decade as AI comes onto the scene.
You mentioned in the book that company culture can't be programmed. What do you mean by that?
There needs to be a human element to it. It maybe could be programmed, but it's not static. It's never staying the same. It is something that constantly needs to be nurtured. To me, culture is like a healthy garden. You give it enough sunshine and rain so that people can grow and spread their wings, so that fruit can come. Everyone's unique. Like, let's say fruit can happen. It's not stymied, it's not micromanaged. You don't ever, you don't uh you do need to bring the sunlight, you do need to bring the rain. And so, like a garden, culture is constantly changing. And so, in an era of high programmability, the beauty in humanity, the beauty in culture, and in the institutions that I talk about evolving at the end of the book is that we can reprogram, even deprogram ourselves, and reprogram these
Mhm.
cultures in a more human way.
Okay, Jeff, you've been very successful in business, so obviously you've made good business decisions. And you've
Yeah.
been able to carry out those decisions and implement what those directives might be. What do you look for in a team in a business? What do you look for that you think would be the picture or the epitome of saying that's a high performance team?
Number one, usually the best teams win.
Okay.
So whether you're the Philadelphia Eagles, I think you guys are near,
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't want to throw out all the
Mhm.
examples. Usually the best teams win. So the number one thing that a leader needs to do is surround himself with the best possible people.
Mhm.
There can't be an ego. I think if there's a leadership trait that is the most underutilized and underappreciated maybe in business for a CEO or leader, it's kindness. Pure, simple human kindness. And that's because I think that some of the best people are attracted to good leaders. And number one, usually the best team wins. So that's the first thing that I would say about that. The second thing I would say is to again, and I think this is critical in the age of AI, prioritizing relationships over results. Results are important. I mean, I run a business. I've run several companies. I understand that I have 4 kids. I
Mhm.
understand that results matter sometimes. um, but I'll tell you what, my relationship with my children is much more important than any result, anything they could ever do. It's much more about that relationship. And I think that applies to teams. We need to remember in the age of machines that we are human and that we're in relationship for a reason. In fact, that might be the greatest technology, I'm putting in quotes, we've
Mhm.
actually really ever created,
Mhm.
is the ability to connect in relationship with another human. So there's 2 thoughts for you.
Okay. Let me ask then, how do you recommend implementing AI in a business today?
Yeah, this isn't, I mean, honestly, as I told you, this isn't my area of expertise per se. I've
Mhm,
invested in probably a dozen or two now AI technology startups. That's my
mhm,
background as a venture capitalist.
mhm,
And now I've written this weird book with a high level picture about humanity and AI.
mhm,
Let me just give you a couple principles.
mhm,
Number one, we've got to point AI towards human flourishing.
mhm,
Again, as leaders, we have to ask ourselves, did I start this business to maximize? I'm making this up. I'm Dunder Mifflin now. I'm saying
mhm,
maximize the amount of paper that I'm going to make.
mhm,
Or did I create this business to be in relationship with other humans, to provide jobs, to be connected, to, of course, create wealth for all of us? But so, number one, humans come first. Number two, a unique part of work, I'm going to put in quotes work, that can't as of yet be replicated by AI, and something that I think will become increasingly valuable in the years to come, is this idea of art and creativity.
mhm,
There's something special about human creativity and art. And so I believe that life, our existence, is the most beautiful art. And I would try to remind my people and my teams of that, that we're not just, I'm making this example, continuing it, we're not just creating paper here. What we're doing is artful and meaningful. And how can we do it better in a more creative way? There's two thoughts about it, but my background and expertise, honestly, Ted, is not like in implementation. That's why I have two Ivy League MBAs as business partners, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, they're much better at implementing than I am or ever have
mhm,
been.
mhm. Would you say, though, that implementation really centers around being human focused and also, which would be collaboration and emotional intelligence, but also innovation? Innovation is the point that comes about when you've got to get into a conflict and a crisis, because that's where you innovatively think, and that means you got critical thinking. So would you say that they're the two important things, critical thinking and emotional intelligence, in order to implement AI in a humanistic form?
Yes, and I would add one other if I could, and
Mhm,
that's a great way to put it, is just presence, bringing our presence to our awareness to these problems that we face around implementation. There's going to be massive AI implementation issues, questions, challenges. Where I'm going, I'm not saying it's going to be easy or beautiful. In fact, I think it's going to be very difficult, but it's in that difficulty that I think we will have the opportunity to come back to ourselves. But I found in my life, as I can bring presence to the challenges that confront me, I'm able to implement from a much better
mhm.
space.
I would say then that it appears as though you are merging and integrating different forms of thinking, the Christian orientation, along with what you've learned perhaps by sitting by the Ganges, and you're not the first one to go through that experience and come back in a changed manner. And then it's all
Yeah.
coming to fruition in AI and saying AI is going to be the reflective mirror, if you will, and perhaps lead us in how we need to become more human so that we can determine our future. So, what does the future look like for Jeff?
Yeah, for me personally, or like as
You
I look out
personally.
on the future.
You
Oh gosh,
personally.
I wish I knew. I don't, to be honest with you. So I've heard the call to adventure. I refused it for a number of years after the governor's race, to be honest with you. I said, I'm not writing a book. I don't want to write a book. I'm not writing a book about this. I'm not going to tell the truth. I mean, you've read the book, Ted. It's
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
personal, it's
Mhm.
very authentic. It's kind of the opposite of like most people who've built companies like I have, blah, blah, they would maybe write a book about ego or, like a
Mhm.
kind of a here's how this is the opposite of that. I talk to you about my foibles and struggles. So I have surrendered to the river. The
Mhm.
Ganges is where the
Mhm.
book starts. The
Mhm.
Virgin River in Zion's National Park in southern Utah is where it ends. I have gone into the river and I'm not exactly sure where it's going to take me. I do have a feeling that this is a transition in my career. I think that most of my efforts will be placed towards, again, like I said, some sort of authorship, thought leadership, speaking, teaching, and less around building companies. I sure hope that the future doesn't include politics, although, if I felt strongly called, I felt like that's what I had to do, I'm sure I would do it. So this is a transition point for me, and I'm not exactly sure.
And I think a lot of people are going through that same transition point. What does the future look like? Because there is so much uncertainty. And if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety and security and belonging are the things that we need most. And then we can begin self-esteem and self-actualizing, which I think is what you're describing in many respects. So
Yes.
interesting adventure you're going into, and I think a lot of business owners can identify with that. So if somebody wants to contact you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way, and if I could just say one thing globally
Hmm.
on your previous question,
Hmm.
I may have mentioned it before, but my bet and goal for humanity in general um, is a renaissance in consciousness here in the next decade. I think that's what AI is bringing us to, and I think that's what we need. So that's where I think
Hmm.
we're going as humans, and that takes more leaders leaving the nest, leaving safety and security, as you said, Ted, and kind of stepping out authentically on their own hero's journey. The best way to follow mine is at my website, www.jeffburningham.com. I'm also on most social media platforms, just at Jeff Burningham.
Jeff, this has been an interesting conversation. I think you're, again, are infusing many different types of thoughts and laying a challenge out there. Can we become more human in the age of AI? And I think that's well spoken. The book is fascinating. It's a very, very personal and good read that I think an awful lot of people will be able to identify with. So, highly recommend people go to whatever source they buy books, purchase it, read it, and get in contact with Jeff. So, Jeff, thank you very much for your time. Great conversation.
Ted, thank you for your thoughtful questions. It was really good to be with you today.
Thank you for watching this episode of Implementors. If you found this conversation valuable, please click the like button. It helps others facing similar challenges discover and benefit from these conversations. We also welcome your insights and reflections, so please share your thoughts in the comments. We truly value thoughtful engagement from leaders like you. If these conversations resonate with the work you're doing, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to stay updated on future episodes. And if someone in your network would benefit from this dialogue, consider passing it along. Great implementation and execution always starts with great conversations. And at the end of the day, ideas are just the beginning. It's implementation and execution that drives meaningful results. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time. And as always, stay grounded, stay curious, and keep implementing.